Hi, good evening. I would like to call to order the Wednesday, May 4th, 2016 regular Town of Haymarket Planning Commission. Roll call, please.
Anthony, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You just said
Roll call. Call to order?
Well,
I'll
you-
just call your name, you'll just say here.
Oh, here. Okay.
Lee?
Here.
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 Here. All right, thank you. At this time, if we could all please stand, pledge allegiance to the flag, and then we'll remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence, please. All right, thank you. All right, at this time, we are going to look at the minutes from our regular meeting on April 6th. So if you all could look those over for me, please. All right, do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the Wednesday, April 6, 2016?
I'll move that we accept the minutes from April 6th meeting of the Planning Commission.
All right, any discussion? Anyone second that?
Please.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, thank you. All right, this time, if a citizen would like to address the Planning Commission, seeing none, we will close citizens' time. All right, announcements. Anybody have an announcement? Congratulations to all the folks who won the election yesterday, to Mayor Leak and the incumbents, and we have two new gentlemen, Mr. Cole and Mr. Leak, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And I look forward to working with you in that capacity, and hopefully you'll stay on this as a liaison. We would like that,
I
so.
have some big shoes to fill from our chairman, but I will.
All right.
Remember, your dad can't tell you what to do.
He's a free
His
thinker.
mom can.
He's a free thinker. All right, as far as the town council update, I guess really the only update, you all are aware that the police station, the former police station on Harover was moved. They're getting ready to put the foundation in. I noticed that the block work, they're beginning that. They filled in the cellar, if you will. And the council now is working on removing the sheds, removing the old garage. The police chief has been given some instructions to find an alternate place. We really want to clear the deck, so to speak, over there and really get that cleaned up for the next phase. And then the only other announcement I can think, and Sherry Marchand, if you have any, the police station, are they still on target to move from their current location to their new residence on the 17th of this month?
I'll defer to Sherry.
Okay.
It's my understanding they're a little ahead of schedule, so I think it's going to be next to the last week of May.
Okay, so it's been bumped back, but at some point this month, they're going to be moving, which will open that building up.
I spoke with Jamie, who's our contractor, and he had told me it is his game plan to hand the keys over on the 16th.
Okay,
On the 16th.
so it's speeding along pretty well.
If you go down to the end, I was nosy looking in, they have the lights on. And you can
Right.
see the new stuff that they're doing. So, and
All
the
right.
Copper Cricket is the use that's going to go in the building in the back, basically a carryover of the very thing.
What was the name of it?
It's called Copper Cricket. It's going to be a consignment store similar to what the very thing was in the end.
Will it go through the whole building, Prashant? Will it fill the building, or
I believe so.
it won't be subdivided, that's really?
I'm not sure it's going to fill the whole. I think the first floor, and then there'll be some office space available upstairs.
Okay.
But we will have a tenant, so it won't sit empty, which is a good thing.
Oh, that's good.
All right, anything from the ARB?
ARB, in regards to the Harrower property and moving forward with the park, the ARB had gone and the town manager, Mr. Henshaw, had approached us in regards to picking out some benches and picnic tables for the property to make it more welcoming and inviting, and hoping to get folks out there and using the property. So we went ahead and gave him a clear direction and the design of the picnic tables as well as benches to place on the property to invite folks. We also went and approved shutters for the Whole Fish House. I think that was one of the last steps that they were looking for the Whole Fish is to complete it was the shutters. So we went ahead and approved shutters and directed the town staff to go ahead and order those for those to be installed.
Okay. So that Harrover property is speeding along. I've made some good progress.
Do you know if there are going to be bike racks in the Harrover property?
We haven't gotten that far yet. I'm sure that could be accommodated.
The approved plan has them.
Right, but
terms of
not
the
in the
interim.
short term, I don't think. There's some trees over there. If you had a big chain, you could, probably- that's old school though.
Yes.
But eventually, yes. I mean, being a walking town, it would make sense,
Yep.
especially with the bike trail.
Yeah, and I reached out to Mr. Stan Smith, who is the owner of what we call the Payne Lane Project, which is right out our front door, and spoke with him. And he was very responsive in making sure we wanted to, make sure that he was understanding of the blight ordinance that went into effect. And he was very responsive in saying that there was a gentleman who is interested, and he's being very responsive, very helpful in asking is there anything that town can do to help in regards to moving things along and just making sure that he's informed in regards to all the matters that are coming up with it. So I know that it has been brought up that it's an eyesore, and he is now very aware of it and is saying that let him know what really needs to be done, and he's willing to go ahead and help move forward in getting it cleaned up. So,
I know that blight ordinance is gonna,
Thank you. Thank you for
yeah,
doing that.
thanks, it's gonna help.
Good news.
Apparently, we've hit him on multiple fronts. I got a call from your dad today the mayor, and then I had recently met with the potential developer as well.
okay, excellent.
So it sounds like he's getting
Great.
encouragement on multiple fronts.
That is a positive development.
So,
So the man that Connor spoke to is a different man that you spoke to. You spoke to the developer, and he's the owner,
so
correct?
myself and Connor and others, Stan Smith is the current owner, absentee owner.
Yes.
And he was, I guess, the silent investor in the original project that was supposed to be developed there with Louis Bloom. And when their development group fell apart, he was kind of left holding the property. And the first time I took in the property, I don't think he realized he owned most of the buildings that were out there. And so the first time I talked to him about the council's interest in wanting to redevelop the or getting the property cleaned up, 2 weeks later, the property went up for sale. And so we vetted a plan. So we're trying to work with a carrot instead of a stick. Site plan came in to redevelop it. The gentleman couldn't get enough pre-leasing, so that went away. Another group came in. I think 2 groups recently have come in wanting to do a mixed-use project across the street. Both of them, I guess, continue to negotiate price and any environmental assessment that needs to be done. There was an old gas station that was there at one point. So, but both the concepts are promising. So, again, kind of having the zoning administrator, commissioner, now council member, the mayor, all of us kind of talking that hopefully
It's nice to see how quickly, for example, from the last time we met in our regular meeting in April to tonight, that whole building was moved from its site, the police station, to the school. And that was accomplished, the sale, the movement, now the foundation is being laid. That took place in less than a month.
Actually, it took place less than 8 days.
That's great.
It went from Saturday to Saturday.
The actual movement of the thing.
Right, he started with his chainsaw on a Saturday morning, because I looked out my back door, and a week later, it was being rolled across the street.
That was phenomenal. I mean, if the same speed or the same pressure, positive pressure, could be exerted here, I don't know if,
Well,
you
I
know,
think,
the
you
two
know-
are comparable, but
Yes and no. I think what's interesting about Mr. Landry, now he's a man of action, so sometimes we have to get himself out of his own way. And I say that respectfully, and if he's listening, he knows that. So you kind of have to get him to slow down sometimes. But he sees the potential. He saw the potential in Pace West. He saw the potential in that building. So being able to have two easy examples to be able to point to other people when they say, well, I can't reuse that building in the back, or really, why not? And we have real costs. I think Sean had said, in addition to the $1 that he paid $1, right? Paid $5 for the house. I think it was $15,000, $20,000 to move the building, and I think he mentioned maybe $80,000 to bring the building up. I mean, that's a reasonable cost, especially for commercial property. So hopefully we'll be able to use that as to your point, be able to motivate others to do something with it. So.
All right, well, that's all positive, that's for sure. All right, old business, the zoning ordinance rewrite. We all had our homework.
may not have a
Right.
copy of this.
Do not have it.
Just here. All right, so basically, Madhu, what we were tasked with before was looking at the zoning use matrix
Okay.
and to look at the various properties and try to condense it, if you will, and make a little bit more sense out of it. And then we were given these two maps.
Okay.
And our homework from the gentleman who presented was to go through this
Okay.
and make comments. And then I'm assuming he's going to come back to our next meeting.
He is. He's going to be, because this is recorded, he'll listen to this. But I'm sorry, real quickly. You're familiar with the zoning ordinance comprehensive plan. Zoning ordinance is kind of the rule book. Has all your standards for what you can do, how high you can build a building, how far it has to be set back. And then we have our land use map, which is our vision. And ideally, these will match. So if we identify, for instance, commercial uses here, our zoning will match the commercial
Oh,
uses.
okay.
Our zoning ordinance is about a 25-year-old document that has been, how do I say it delicately? Had a lot of amendments to it, and so it's not a very useful document, and it doesn't implement the town's vision of a walking town. And it allows a range of uses that we probably don't want. For instance, I brought up the example, this property here with the Baptist Church, right now by the B1 district, you could do an auto service repair and station. If you look at the residential and other uses that are around it, does that heavy sort of mechanic use make sense in this part of our, what we call a transitional commercial? So
Okay.
he had gone through and based on our comp plan and reorganized all the uses that would be expected in town. And then, Mr. Chairman, tonight, if we can do this quickly, kind of go through and quickly audit or see if anyone had any objections to the range of uses. So, thanks for the quick intro.
All right, do you want to go through it, or do you want to take our questions now? Or
I'll go ahead and take your
unless there's-
questions, and then we can either go line by line, or if you marked up something, I can just take that. So we'll wait for your questions first.
All right, I think we'll start over here with Mr. Carroll and just kind of go this direction. I'm sure we all probably have some of the same questions, so.
Could I beg to go later on?
Sure.
Both Maureen and I were absent when this was
Okay,
given out.
all right, I'll about lead off then.
Okay.
and the B's for everybody was by right, and the S was special use. So the B indicates by right, and S special use. All right, Mr. Marchand, on this first page, and this may be ignorance on my part, but down there underneath multifamily dwelling, is that two-family dwelling a duplex, or is that two families physically residing in a single-family home?
Duplex.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, so that answers that question. And currently, to my knowledge, we don't have any duplexes, right?
The only duplex we have is on Walter Robinson Lane,
Right across the,
across the highway up against 66.
okay. And then I looked through this. It looks, that's about the only question I had on that. I do have a question, a couple questions on these maps.
Okay.
On the where you had stricken proposed and put adopted Town of Haymarket amended plan use map. Right, where Mr. Landry's at, QBE, on this document, it says public. Sorry, on the current zoning, it says B1 district. Shouldn't those be the same?
So it should be. The last time we adopted this map, Sean had not bought Pace West yet. It was still a school.
Right,
So it was appropriately designated public.
okay,
Since he has bought it, when we update the comprehensive plan, that will be one of the suggestions we make, that you go ahead and designate it correctly. You would designate it on the plan interchange. We have neighborhood commercial or transitional commercial. We may want to give it one of those designations.
right. That way the colors match what the
Correct.
uses are. And then the other one I had, we had underneath the old business, we had Jim and Andrea Payne here to talk about their proposed dog kennel.
Yes, sir.
And I noticed in the neighborhood town center there off Huntington Path, or, let me see, Jefferson Street, in that, excuse me, area over there.
Are you looking at the zoning map or the plan land use map?
I'm looking at the amended land use map,
Okay.
or current, I guess either one would kind of be the same. On this document over here on page 3, I believe it is, or maybe 4, there is use for a kennel. I guess it's on page, I'm sorry, yeah, it's on page 3 up underneath where it says hospital, hotel. And that's all underneath special use, but in the neighborhood businesses, B2, that's proposed to be by right, correct?
Or light industrial, I'm not sure.
I'm catching up just a second. So yes, it would be by right in light industrial and would be limited to the neighborhood business district. That's proposed.
Right,
Today, they would be able to develop the kennel. They're calling it doggy daycare.
right,
So that, the way this would be proposed, it would only be allowed in the B2 districts, which are these two pink districts right here.
right,
Haynes want to go in right here.
correct.
So our planned land use map, right now, this is zone residential. Our planned land use map is wanting to go to TC, transitional commercial. And so right now, it would not allow a kennel there.
So,
Under residential, it would not allow it.
Or
Right now, under residential, no.
Okay.
If the Paynes wanted to come in and rezone this to a commercial district to allow dog daycare, because we anticipate a commercial, because we designate this commercial in our land use plan, we would support it, because that's where our plan wants us to go. Make sense?
Yes.
which, the sooner we can get these two to marry up with one another, it's going
Yes.
to make life a lot easier. And then the only other question I had, and this is specifically for you, the council, and you've been on meetings as well, with the proposed VRE doing the study. In town, over there by the railroad, where it says light industrial, over near James Madison Highway, kind of sandwiched there next to the Conservancy. How big of an area is that? Would that be, right, would that be a potential location for a VRE station?
It would not, just because you would access the station from here, and VRE doesn't want people walking across the tracks.
Right here.
So they want the station to be on the side of the tracks that you would access the parking.
All right, so there's no way to build access into that.
You could, I mean, if they did a crossover or something like that, there'd be some possibility. The reason why it has such an odd shape is because it's above the floodplain.
Right.
All the other areas in the floodplain.
That's what I thought.
So, but I think when we preliminarily spoke, it was looking at potential locations on the north side, so you can move in and out of any sort of park and ride or other facility and not have to cross the tracks.
And is that really about the only place in the town's limits where it could potentially go? Are there any other locations?
It would just be in these general locations here. A couple of factors they have is where, because we have a curve here, they want a certain amount of straight distance on the track. They were looking at potential locations here and also west of town.
Okay,
Across the street, past where, the warehouse uses that are on 55.
right, I know where that's
that
at.
way. So one concern was the amount of traffic that would be necessary to get in and get out.
Right,
Something we had suggested was maybe doing a kiss and ride. Right, a station here would have be what they call multimodal. You could walk, you could ride your bike, you could drive your car, versus going to the west, it may be more problematic to get there. So a smaller facility that would have a kiss and ride where, I live over here, I want to drop my wife off, to get on the train, then that would be a smaller facility that would be able to accommodate it. Wouldn't be as large as what you'd see in Manassas or someplace like that.
right.
So, yeah, hopefully that answered your question. I was looking at the old, the Durham property, the underbelly of Haymarket.
Yes.
Looking at that as potential location, given the railroad spur that's there.
Yeah. That would.
And also, one of the considerations too, I know it's hard to see from where you are, but right now we have that drive between Piedmont Tire and Auto and where Foster's is. And that driveway right there is going to be matched by the fairgrounds. So you're setting up your grid network to be able to get in and get out here. If you had a facility behind the shopping center, there's no easy way to get there. There's no direct public street access. You'd have to either drive, past the side of Bloom, or you'd have to come out behind. That's all private access easements. So anyway, but generally it's in this location where you would want to locate it. They would want to locate a facility.
Right, but is that area a viable option for VRE if the land can be acquired?
Yeah,
I mean-
they're identifying as one of their potential sites.
I mean, it makes sense to have the VRE in town where people could walk, right? Provided
Yeah.
we had parking.
Correct. The biggest solution there would be access, because you have, you're going to have a traffic light here.
Right,
You already have a large amount of traffic we already have going through. We're going to be closing the median as part of the interchange project. So the solution you'd have to come up with a traffic solution that makes sense.
right,
You think when the trains come in and everyone gets off, and once they get out of there, you would want to make sure that, you don't overwhelm, this intersection, because now you have 100 cars trying to get out all at once.
right.
So if we can solve the traffic solution, then I think one of these will be a viable option.
Right, and just one more comment along
They're
those
well
lines.
far away from doing that. So.
Right, I understand, but it's worthy of the conversation.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So-
I'm excited about it.
So I guess what I'm looking for, and I know this isn't about the VRE per se, although we're looking at this map, and we don't necessarily have to do it tonight, but I would like some formal proposal to go up to the council that we are in favor of the VRE coming to Haymarket. I think that would go a long ways, and then we could work in unison with the council to do what we could do. Because I think with the new VDOT and all this other stuff going on, the more mass transportation we can get out here, the more it's going to benefit us and our businesses. So anyway, maybe at the next meeting, we can adopt some sort of resolution to pass out.
Yeah, I think we'll have, the VRE, it's almost, I wouldn't say it's overkill, but they have gone, they have like a technical committee, they have a
Right.
policy committee, and they have, I'm like the local, because of the planning background, I'm on one of the stakeholder committees. So they've done a pretty admirable job of trying to get as many people involved as they can. Hopefully they'll come back and present to the council and maybe have you guys there as well to be able to.
All right, last comment on that, and I'll pass it over. I spoke to 2 people within the past week, and they said the VRE has great on-time rates. It's very easy to get in and get out. The only thing they didn't like about it, I think the last train leaves at like 6:30 or something. But hopefully, eventually it can, as it expands, maybe they can increase their hours. So anyway, I don't want to take up any more time, so I'll pass it over
I think that'd be
to
great.
Mrs.
I'm
Passanello.
way in favor of the VRE. And I do want to say that I know in many other places, they do have walkovers that go over the tracks. I can think of multiple where we lived along the Hudson in New York. And, that certainly could be, I'm sure, an option for them to do.
Most of the Metro stations have the center median walkovers as well. The one thing on VRE, when we're speaking, so they're having to share the line with Norfolk Southern, and so they're going to have to coordinate schedules that's there. But one of the concerns is the more stops you have, the less efficient. And so, unlike the metro stations and the others, want to be competitive and be able to move people quicker at a more reasonable cost. So they were toying with, at some of the public meetings, how many stops do you have? How many runs do you have in a day? How does that affect fares? And those types of things. So,
Right, all I'm looking to do is support it. We're just a little piece of the pie, but if we can get behind it as a group, as a commission, I think that goes a long ways, and let the professionals do their thing. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm going to turn my mic off.
I just had really one question, and that was about, which really surprised me, is a private cemetery. And that that's a by right if you're in an R1 residential general. I don't know if that was,
catch up to you. So,
Green Hill Crossing, perhaps.
which page are you on?
it's the last page of our worksheet,
Yeah.
under miscellaneous.
So if you think of St. Paul's Church, it has
Okay,
a cemetery.
residential general, but would that allow somebody to be, if they wanted to be interred in their yard, basically?
So let's look at our definition list. So I think it's meant to address St. Paul's primarily, and it wouldn't
okay.
be a for-profit per se, kind of like when you're more commercialized, where people go in and,
I know we would have
Right.
to approve it, but,
so,
It's on the bottom of page
Page 4.
4.
the definitions.
Yes.
so at private, it's a place where human remains are interred above or below ground and where plots are not sold. I didn't know if that was actually allowed in this state.
There's a number of health code, I think, state
Yeah,
regulations
right.
that govern what you can and can't do. I mean, that's something I could see, is could there be a loophole? Could it be seen as any of the houses on Fayette Street that have larger lots? Could they could they bury someone on their property? I can try to track that down. It's a good catch.
All right, that was really my only question.
I was good with the proposed.
I had,
Go ahead. Well, you go ahead.
I knew you weren't here, I didn't mean to step on your toes there. The format of the definitions, just wanted to make a comment that I would hope that when they edit this, there's quite a few editing errors in this formatted prose. One of the suggestions I would make that they use the serial or Oxford comma, which is basically the preferred standardized form for government printing offices and all the major style sheets. It puts a comma before and. It does away with ambiguity. It makes for greater clarity. Then there were the English teacher of me was bothered by the misuse of fewer and less. If you can count them, you use fewer. If you can't count it, like grains of sugar, you use less. And there are typos like that in here. There's also problems with some of the semicolons, colons, as well as commas. So I wasn't sure at how finely this had been edited. I actually spent a number of hours on it, and then I just said, it really needs editing. So I just want to throw
If you
that
happen
out.
to have a markup and you're willing to share it, I will provide it to Darren.
I have markups for the first 4 or 5 pages, and that's what a few hours took me.
So this is a working draft.
And the other,
So
yes.
Whether or not he ran quality control, I don't know.
Right.
But I'll make sure that he listens to this dialogue.
And the italicized terms, I would rather see them in bold, because your eyes are drawn, it differentiates it from the normal printing, whereas the italics are not really used correctly.
Okay.
And all the underlining is really distracting, I think is,
So the underline was trying to differentiate between definitions that we have today and definitions that they're adding.
okay.
So that's why this is more of a track change document, so that's
Right.
why the utility of it's a little awkward.
It was.
Okay.
So
She just finished a job for a Connecticut school editing a big,
this is great, and we get it for free.
they get $40 an hour for their,
Pro bono, right?
I don't mean to belittle that, this is very helpful to have.
Yeah, no, it really
It
makes
is a little
for,
daunting.
yeah, it's an educated document. We're an educated group in this town, so it reflects us.
It does, and the reason why it's so robust is that this removes any, if you have arguments about definitions, and we've had that happen before, for we have a use called a nonprofit organization, and because we didn't have a definition, we had competing thoughts of what it was, so this really helps in terms of how we administer it. So,
There was one other thing that really got to me on page 5. It refers to the Code of Virginia of 1950, and then in parentheses, it has, this code, however, refers to the code of the town of Haymarket, Virginia. I think it should be the town of Haymarket, Virginia has a specific code of its own, not this code, some sort of subcode. So that would be rephrased totally on that. That was, it's just not appropriate. And at the bottom of that page, the planning commission would be capital P and capital C and town of Haymarket, not just the town. So there's some, I guess in places it's very relaxed or informal when effectively this is a formal document.
okay.
So they lose track of audience, and they shouldn't.
Yes, ma'am. Often this is plagiarized from other jurisdictions, so we will set the tone and make sure that our.
And that's a crime, probably.
Ours will be the example with which to go forward with. Thank you for doing that.
Madhu, did you?
No, today is my first day, so I'm just listening. And maybe in the next meeting I will have more
Absolutely.
question. Only one question, I'm sorry.
It
One-
takes time to get up and
Yeah.
running, so. if
One
you-
question I have, VRE, they're talking about the station right between, this is Carolina Street and 15 between in there, right?
Well, right now, they're in the process of trying to figure out, if you will, where are viable options to put it. I'm not privy to all the discussions. I know Councilman Passanella is really involved in that, but what I was trying to do was just look at this map and say, where in the town, within the town limits, could this station go? And really, the only place I see would be that light industrial area, because it's got to be near the railroad track.
I hear somebody in our community, they're telling, across from track, they are building apartments on the 50-acre land. Is that true?
So,
15.
Yeah, 15, between 15 and Carolina. Across the railroad, they're building apartments in there.
so Midwood, that's the development south of, across from Walmart, where the data center is today and where the new data centers are being proposed. West of that, I'm sorry, before Amazon came in, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to say that. Before this data center that shall not be named was supposed to go on that site, the owner of the property submitted an active adult community. wanted to convert that land from commercial, industrial to residential. And they got a plan amendment approved, or initiated a comprehensive plan amendment at the board level. That would be 600 active adult units, multifamily and single family. And there was some support for that because of how close it was to the hospital. Now that data center is potentially going to go there, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know, up in Loudon where I work, there's a lot of angst between residential and data centers because of the noise and all the other types of things. So I was surprised that they have that rezoning to develop those units was dormant. We just got a resubmission of it about 2 weeks ago. So that's what's going on there. The council will probably be asked to comment on it at some point. So, anything else? If I could kind of hit the yes, sir.
I have just a couple of
Okay.
points that I wanted to consider. Under civic,
Okay.
in the zoning matrix,
Okay.
special use is marked by an S with a line underneath it.
So, again, this is a track change document, an S with a line under it. It's not permitted today. It would be added. It would only be added as a special use.
Oh, I see. All right. So under this, then, in certain residential areas, it would not be allowed to have, today, a civic use. It's not allowed today.
Today, civic use is allowed in the transitional commercial, town center, and our B2 zoning districts. We are adding it as a by right use to our conservation districts,
Uh-huh.
but we would only allow it in R1 and R2
Under
by special use permit.
And would that include things like the election signs?
Civic
Yeah.
use is more of your hard structures. It's
All
different
right.
than would be
So you're
signage.
building something
Your public-
rather than
your public
gathering?
facilities, correct.
Or, okay, so that would be one area. And then also educational use. Obviously, there is no college or university here in town. Is this a proposed that's,
Correct, and that was what I was about to suggest. So right now, as you see, we don't have a provision for, let's say, George Mason wanted to come in and do a satellite campus.
yeah,
We don't currently allow that.
okay.
So the reason why you would allow it by a special use permit is because size and scale. The George Mason facility in Fairfax is much larger and wouldn't fit into our context. So that's why you would have it as a special use permit to make sure it doesn't overwhelm the area in
area.
which it would want to be located.
Okay,
And we felt the only areas that would be able to accommodate it would be our B1 and our B2. You know, again, B2 being the fairgrounds or someplace like that.
all right. And then, again, there are certain things listed here, and I took literally your idea last month of walking around and seeing this. I could not find the liquor store in Haymarket.
We may have had one previously. We may have had one in this building, I think, at some point. So, liquor stores, liquor
Is
store
there
would be
a
a-
liquor
would be a-
store in-
would be an ABC store, basically. Would we want to have an ABC store?
In Virginia, it would have to be, wouldn't it?
Correct.
And there is not one in Haymarket at the present time.
No, sir.
Okay.
So would we want, let's say if they wanted to come into either Leeberry or go into the retail, the commercial at the fairgrounds, would we want to be able to accommodate that for the tax revenue that it would generate?
There are a number of other things that are presently not available in Haymarket that are listed here also. Is that with an aim towards some future development in that regard? Tattoo parlors,
That's the intent, so that in case they come
In
and they
case
say,
they come.
like the adult
So-
store.
An
we can
adult
You need
store.
a special use permit, so we can say, no, 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 no.
So there are some of these are mandated by the state code, that you can't specifically exclude them. You can direct
All right.
where they can be located in the town, and again, that's the purpose of the special use, you'd be able to evaluate its appropriateness.
all right.
So kind of hitting the highlights, agricultural, obviously, we don't have enough land to promote dairy farming or a sawmill. Residential, we are adding a temporary healthcare structure, that's mandated by the state. It's kind of like your, what do you call it, your grandma, when you add the in-law suite, where if you needed to bring in someone temporarily to take care, to be able to do that. Multifamily. Right now, we only allow multifamily as a second or third floor use in our mixed-use developments. So we used to have what they call an R3 district, where it was, you have a single family, which is R1, duplexes, townhouses, which is R2 today, and R3, which was a standalone multifamily. So this is looking at allowing that as a special use permit in town. We took manufactured out so that we're not, we don't have trailer parks anymore. Not that they're not necessary, but haven't had those for a while. Adding emergency shelter is something that we need to offer because of the state. Public maintenance and service facility. What we have today is basically the garage down at Hanover. This would only allow that. So actually, we probably do want to look at adding that as an R1 or an R2 because that's what Hanover is allowed today. So I need to look at that. Public recreation facility would be like our park. Recycling centers, would there be an objection to allowing recycling centers? We have an informal one behind the old firehouse right now, but it would be a more formal facility. Same thing with a refuse collection site. That would, we would want to look at that or even accommodate that at all. Shelters. So, okay, commercial, automobile, supply, parts. Right now, we wouldn't allow like an auto zone or something like that. So, looking at that, automobile rental or leasing. If someone wanted to run a Hertz rental car, right now we don't allow it. Would we want to consider allowing that? Brewery or distillery. We had some folks wanting to look at one point wanting to look at the old firehouse as a winery or a brewery. Prince William has done a lot with that recent legislation. Trade schools, car washes. Cemetery is probably, based on what we talked about, the private cemetery, maybe that's not something we want to offer as a business use. So we don't have to decide tonight. We maybe think about that later on. Indoor amusement, that's simply redefining how we categorize Jumpin' Jimmy's, and then the next one down would be how we categorize Next Level Fitness. So it's just providing a more definitive reference. Vehicle service repair, we don't have that, or we do have that down in Durham's, the Fred's Garage and those types of things. More of commercial, your larger commercial vehicles, your heavier vehicles versus your smaller auto service. Custom manufacturing, that's more of what they do down at Century Stair. Adult entertainment, we do have to include that, and we've directed that would only be appropriate in the I-1 district. What else do we have? Funeral home, we would extend that to TC, same with garden center. Gas station would only be, right now it's allowed by special use permit, that's the Sheets. We would extend it over to the B2. Actually, we probably need to think about that some more. Why would we allow it as by right, but a special exception in I-1? So, sorry, I do this every day. This is kind of interesting to me, but maybe it's driving you guys crazy. Sorry. Halfway house by state code, we're required to provide that. Home occupation, Class A and Class B. All these special use permits for home occupations, we wanted to get them by right. Distinguishing between Class A and Class B would be the intensity. Class A would go by right. Class B would go by special use permit. We distinguish where they would go. Hospital, right now we don't allow a hospital. Does this make sense given that we have the hospital across the street? Yeah. Probably something you want to think about. Mini warehouse, believe it or not, today we don't define that even though we have one. Same thing with a pawn shop. Restaurants, drive-in and drive food, we define those a little differently now. Shooting range, would we want to accommodate some sort of a shooting range in the I-1 district? Store adult is a variation of adult entertainment. Liquor store, defining where that would be. Tattoo parlor we already talked about. Viewing booth, again, we have to include some variation of that. And that's pretty much it. We did add hotel. Right now, we don't allow hotel. Fairgrounds is wanting to come in with a hotel use. So, aviation facility. That's not a hangar, obviously. It's more of some sort of repair. We're going to I-1 for that. That's pretty much it. So, any other issues or concerns?
I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
Underneath religious assembly, over on the second page at the top, we're saying by right resident R1, by right R2, by right transitional commercial, special use B1 town center, special use neighborhood business. Why wouldn't we allow it as special use in light industrial if somebody had a conference room or office and somebody wanted to start a church? What would be the reason we wouldn't allow that?
Inherently, if you look at religious facilities and industrial complexes, do they play well together? Just heavy equipment, for instance, I keep going back to the Durham example. Let's say when someone has a religious facility and you have D&J Trucking running their trucks back and forth, and you have little Johnny trying to get with mommy to the church. Do those mix well together in terms of traffic and noise and those types of things?
I guess from a government standpoint, is that our job to say whether it mixes or to allow it?
Well, your charge of the zoning ordinance is to protect the health, safety, and welfare
Right.
of the public, and also look at protecting your businesses.
Right.
Would a business that is inherently noisy and has a lot of traffic, if it's now impacted because the religious assembly is being impacted by that noise and asking the industrial guy to do things differently, what is really your priority? Our
Right.
industrial district is inherently a particular function. Our R1 districts or commercial districts are primarily another. We distinguish between them.
Well, I guess my question is what numbers constitute a religious assembly? Let's say, for example, 3 or 4 people gathered on a Sunday when, I don't know, something about that just doesn't sit
If
right.
it's a formal religious assembly. If I have a conference room, if you think about, let's think about it this way. Giuseppe's.
Right,
Giuseppe's is a restaurant with meeting space.
correct.
For a while there was a mosque that was meeting there for Friday prayer. The primary use of that facility is a church, or no, it was a restaurant, but they were using that same thing here. If I have a conference room down and I want to have some people come in on a Sunday, my primary use is still there. I just use this facility temporarily, I use the room.
Right, but
Makes sense.
that's what I'm saying, but this wouldn't preclude somebody from doing that.
No, now if it's becoming more of that than what it's
Right.
allowed to be, then we need to talk about it, but.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying if somebody wanted to gather like a church startup temporarily, I guess the religious freedom is big in my book.
Our LUPA, right now, I think our LUPA is religious liberties. It's a federal mandate, and you can't exclude, if you allow an assembly already, if you allow the Elk Lodge, not the Elk Lodge, not the Moose Lodge, who's the guy on, the Masons.
I know you're talking about.
The Masons is a club or organization. We allow that, but not a church. That's illegal. So we're trying to reconcile where we allow those types of uses in religious assemblies. So I kind of got off your question a little bit. Didn't? So I think what this does is, right now we already allow it in R1 and R2. Church facilities with residential, that's compatible and makes sense. Having it in our downtown areas, for instance, we allow the church that's going across the street in there. It's an office that they're using it for. Eventually they want to do it. Just how that traffic behaved create a problem. People coming to church on a Sunday or coming to church during the week. So that special use permit allows you to look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, to make sure that they don't impact the businesses around them.
So we're not saying no, we're just saying that
Yeah.
It's not by right, it's special use.
Correct.
So,
Well, the reason I asked, because on the light industrial, there's nothing.
correct. In Loudon, the issue they're having up in Loudon right now is they're allowing religious assemblies in a lot of your industrial parks. And because the rents are inherently cheaper, most churches are able to go in there. But now you're quickly changing the character of those areas, and a lot of the businesses that are there are battling with the churches because of the traffic and the noise and those types of things. So
Right.
we accommodate them elsewhere, but not in light industrial. Sorry for the long answer.
So I just want to add one more thing to Matt's. Matt's, do you want to see a special use on that light industrial? Is that what,
I would. Just, it doesn't mean it's going to be approved, but it doesn't mean it wouldn't.
Right.
I don't know, it just struck me odd. It's like everywhere else is pretty much allowed except for that. And I think most people would agree, you know,
I think it's a part of the percentage of use, how often you use, right? For the secondary use, primary use, what they're,
Correct, secondary use is fine, or accessories, so, I would agree with, it's the nature of how it's used. And that's why we call it religious assembly. Some denominations, you know, hope I'm not breaking laws by saying this, how Catholics worship, the number of days a week that they worship is different than, let's say, a mosque or a
synagogue?
synagogue. And so the reason why we pull it under a general religious assembly is so if we looked at a special use permit, it would say, okay, this faith worships differently than another facility, and their traffic won't overlap. So,
Right, and the only reason I mention, if you look at the way most churches are going, there's a lot of studies that suggest in 25 years, worship facilities will not be like they are today. It'll be more in-home, and so, I mean, and the way I look at this, we're setting this up the best we can for long-term, so I think we just need to think of everything the best we can. Obviously realize they can always be amended, but, and I don't want to belabor the point, it just kind of struck me odd.
okay, so this is a working draft. I'll take it back to Darren. He'll go ahead and start, so he's amending other parts of the ordinances already. This will be the use lists that he includes. And as we get more of a polished document for you to look at, if something stands out that it doesn't make sense, we can strike it or add it.
Okay. All right, and as far as the, well, first of all, does anybody have any more comments? I don't want to cut it off as you had some more. And I really appreciate the work you've done, especially Mrs. Carroll for her English expertise. Being a phys ed teacher myself, she probably wouldn't want to grade my papers.
She's tough.
She graded your love letters, right?
No.
All right, so the signed ordinance update, Mr. Marchand, any update?
I'm likely to take it to a joint hearing in June. So the attorney made his edits. What I have to add now is that we had a range of, what's on this is, remember we had a matrix of all the signs in each district. We didn't have an overall total. So the question came back was saying, okay, there's 7 different sign types. Each one has a maximum. Could a tenant come in and say, I want all 7 at the maximum? And basically litter a side of a building with all these signs. So I'm having to run some numbers to see what would be a reasonable maximum. So you can have any number of signs, but the total of them would have to, not exceed. So I just got to tweak that, and then we're going to get it knocked out. So we're going to try to do a joint public hearing in June.
Okay. All right, sir, your update.
Okay. So the town center master plan, the site plan is ready, the preliminary plan is ready for you to review. We ran into a snafu, excuse the military term. Right now, the commission is allowed to waive or provide alternate screening requirements. So the challenge we're having right now is the buffer that we would require adjacent to the residential use behind us and next door would be 25 feet by ordinance. You're allowed to approve an alternative buffer either a more intense screen or something like that. The attorney let us know that apparently the state code explicitly prohibits you from doing that. So we're having to amend the ordinance, and we're going to, as a Band-Aid, give myself the discretion to waive it, but to meet the standard that we have today. The standard today is if you can provide an equivalent screen, then that's approved. The attorney also said was if we're going to keep running into these situations where 25 feet adjacent to residential is, most of our lots in town are very small, especially the ones that are along Washington Street between Madison and, should we come up with a better standard? Well, that's going to be part of this whole rewrite. We need to get this addressed soon. So we're going to bring the town center master plan or the site plan to you in June for hearing, and at the same time, we're going to have a zoning ordinance amendment to give me the discretion to modify it. And then you'll make that modification there. Does that make sense? So you'll be looking at the master plan in June. The Haymarket Baptist Church has also changed their site plan. They were going to do the pave the parking lot, do a sanctuary addition, do some other things. They've backed off of that, just want to pave the lot, but they had to change their site plan. It's significant enough that you and the council have to look at it. So we may do that in June as well. And then, what else is there? The fairgrounds is moving along. Again, they want to do the hotel, the Lidl Shopping Center, do the townhouse units in the back. That's still a couple of months away from your review. And the Masons put in a site plan we've not heard back from them yet. So things are moving along. Chick-fil-A is up and running.
The Masons, I'm sorry.
The Masonic Lodge,
Yeah, that's,
they submitted a plan. They own the property where the tobacco shop is.
right, Tobacco
The
Island.
council gave that tobacco shop temporary occupancy while the site plan addressing parking and lighting and screening got approved. So and they were also willing to put addition on the lodge. So we gave them comments on that site plan, and hopefully they'll come back soon.
Oh, okay.
So, already talked about Payne Lane. Sheets is waiting on some gas line easements. You approved a preliminary plan. They got to come in with a final plan. This ice rink addition's going up. If you have a chance to go look at it, it's moving along quickly. Chick-fil-A's rocking and rolling. If you've been out there lately, the houses on Blight are going up. They could just put the roofs on. They were a little taller than I thought they were going to be, but
It was like,
and if you look at their price point,
What is the price point?
$400,000.
Do you know how much square footage? I know you told me before, but I forget.
20, I think around 2,200. If you go to Oak Ridge Communities, they have on their website they have a listing.
and you can click on, and
You
you
can click
find
on
the
it.
park right behind
Yes,
it.
and the park is, they advertise the park with that. So that's probably why they're charging the fee, because you back up against the park,
That's
your
not
lot premium. So you saw Landry's project moving. The farmer's market was moved to the Hanover property that went off last weekend. Did you see a lot of people there?
It wasn't well attended, but it was pouring rain, so
Okay.
it's probably not a fair
They
indicator.
put that project out to bid to do the engineering for the master plan. So hopefully we'll start moving forward on that. Having that site plan done for that will help tremendously, because then we can start picking off projects that we want to do.
Have you prioritized the projects on the Hair-Over? Is there, for example, playground, where does that fall on the priority list? Just curious.
That's what we're going to be able to do once we get the engineering done. So, I think the priority will probably be the pavilion and the playground will probably be the priorities. The separate line item is, separate cost is going to be the streetscape. Do we want to have sidewalks there before we put more money into it? That'll all be decisions once we get the site plan done. What else? You've seen the bridge going along. We had hoped to have we have a Connolly money that is going to do the sidewalk along here to connect to the bridge.
Oh, good.
That was supposed to be, we were expecting that was going to be mobilized, because all the equipment's already out there, that they would have done that at the same time. We haven't been able to move as fast as we thought we would.
How about at the other end, at Robinson's Paradise area, it all of a sudden just goes into 1950s Virginia?
So there was a rezoning on the east side between Jordan Lane and Heathcote that was is supposed to provide sidewalks when they develop. I talked to Supervisor Canlin about it, saying, hey, could we work with the county to get a project to bridge the gap? And he says, well, I don't know. I think that's the town's problem. I'm like, well, why do you think it's the town's problem? Because the town switched the trail to the east side of the bridge to the west side of the bridge. It's like, no, that wasn't us. The VDOT came back and said the way the road aligns, we have to put the trail on the west side. And so once he understood that, maybe we can work with the county to make that connection. That would mean the trail would go all the way to Heathcote. When you go across Heathcote, the trail is now on the east side, so there would have to be a crossing there, but you would at least have that continuity all the way up there.
Right.
Having it on this side makes sense because we can bring it all the way down
Yes.
to the town hall. If it was on the other side in front of the Contrucci barn, it's a steep slope, that would have been much more money to try to get that trail to come down. Yes, sir.
I do have a question. My wife asked me, I didn't have the answer. I thought I did, but this older home that sits basically right behind us, just before the bridge, she said that a lady asked her today or told her that the lady's yard's being taken. Do you know anything about how much land is being taken?
Correct. So the trail I just mentioned to you, we call it the Connolly Project. That's a 10-foot wide trail. There's always, when they say a taking, eminent domain, they don't take it without payment. They have to pay you fair market value for that. We had a similar issue when we were doing the streetscape project. We're talking about small widths, 4 feet in width along the length of the property, some more, some less. So part of that project will require land from all those lots between here and the bridge. They will do, there will be an appraisal of that, and the landowner will be offered that appraisal, and they can choose to accept that, or they can appeal that. But it's not as if they just take it and that's it. So we're talking, I think at most 10 feet across the frontage. In some places, probably less.
Right. I mean, I understand eminent domain, they have to pay in appraisals, but when you're talking to a lady who's lived there close to 50 years, and any land they take is significant, so I don't want to minimize taking of 10 feet, but you think it's about 10 feet?
Yeah, and I don't mean to belittle that. It's just, you say eminent domain, and people, I think when VDOT and other people do that, in my experience has been they're not jerks about it. They do this, they want to come, they talk to them, they understand what's happening and the effect of that. So, but yes, 10 feet, probably 10 feet at the most, probably less along that frontage. The issue is right now the road width is less than the right-of-way width. So the shoulders, when you go out there, you think, well, the road's only that wide. Well, no, it's actually, the VDOT right-of-way is actually much wider. So the trail on the west side, part of that will probably be the ditch, and then the other part will be taken from the, I shouldn't say taken, will be needed from the landowner to be able to get that segment. So I think one way to look at it is if getting a sidewalk, if you were to ever sell that for commercial, the fact that someone else came in and paid for that frontage would only increase the value and save the cost of having to pay that in the future. So not only are they getting paid money for it, but their property's getting improved, and they won't have to do that in the future. So
Maybe we should put together a little flyer for her as a courtesy and kind of help her out.
if this is the first time she's been approached about it, I apologize that happened. I thought we had already.
Well, I'm
she
not
was
saying it
aware of
hasn't. I was just asked the question. Apparently somebody knows her and she's pretty confused.
Okay.
But that's secondhand information.
Well, we need to know that because we were trying to work with folks so that they aren't alarmed when people. But I agree. If someone shows up and says, "I'm with the government, I'm here to help," but I want
The elderly, I want to make sure they're taken care of. I think that's important.
So a lot happening. You seen the diamond interchange going on? Like, so.
Oh, it's marvelous. Could I just make a comment here about the sign ordinance update within the zoning, Chapter 58?
Okay.
It is the far and away the best part of Chapter 58, and that started off rough about, 4 or 5 months ago. So the same type of work that went into that needs to go into the rest of Chapter 58.
Oh, you're saying
The
that,
definition of terms,
oh, all the sign definitions?
yes. That was well done, it was easily understood, it fit the bill perfectly. It was the best explanation yet.
The group that did that was the same gentleman that did the Hanover master plan.
I thought so. Yeah, I recognize the name. If we get them on this, the rest of this.
Okay, sorry for droning on. Any other,
Would it be possible to have these maps put on our basically Town of Haymarket webpage with also the possibility to zoom in and see other areas? I know Sherry has Xeroxed them in legal-size paper for us, and it helps, but sometimes it's nice to be able to zoom in an area and sort of see it piecemeal. I don't know if we have that technology here.
we do have the zoning map on the
that.
website. It's
We-
probably not intuitive. You
Not
could
just open it as a PDF, but I mean, actually zoom in and zoom out like you can do in a lot of things.
We'll have to look, I mean, with the PDF, you should be able to zoom in. If that's not a function, we'll have to look at why that's not a function. But we can look into that.
And both of them, the plan, you know,
Yeah, you're able to zoom in.
you are.
Yeah, I have it right here. Is there a way to get the planned land use map on there though as well?
It's in the comp plan, but we could get that plan up as well.
All right, anything else? I think it's been productive. Appreciate your all's patience, especially you, Sherry. I know you sit there patiently, meeting after meeting. We thank you for what you do. All right, do I have a motion that we adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I second that motion.
Any opposed? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.